Welcome back to the CEO's Grind. Today's episode is packed with insight for anyone building a business, protecting a legacy, or facing tough legal crossroads. We are today joined by a leader who blends law, loyalty, and legacy in everything he does. Attorney Andrew J. Rosenberg from Racine, Wisconsin. Not just a legal expert, trusted advisor to family business owners across the state. Today, we'll tap into his experience around estate planning, real estate deals, hopefully, to feed my own purposes, contract pitfalls, and the mindset that sets ethical leaders apart. Welcome, Andrew. Good morning.
Hey, thanks for having me on the show.
Our pleasure. And happy Friday, everybody. We're recording on a Friday. Hopefully the weather is finally breaking wherever you guys are. Here in Cleveland, it's been a horrible week, just overcast, and finally today broke. How's on your side of the world?
Pretty good. It's been warming up a little bit. The sun's definitely out more. So yeah, I would say we're hovering in like mid 40s on the low end, getting up into the 50s, sometimes 60s. But that's getting warmer every day, I think.
Outstanding. So Wes, let me ask you a question first. So I don't know how much you share with Andrew about our podcast, and tell it to Andrew and to our viewers what the CEO's Grind is about and why we brought Andrew in as a talk to our viewers.
So the CEO Grind is a podcast to share our experiences and what we've learned through going through the grind of starting a business as entrepreneurs, and sharing the pitfalls that others who are starting are going to run into. And it doesn't matter what industry you're in, whether it's law or hairdresser or mechanicals. We all run into the same type of problems, whether it's with people problems, culture, money, all different problems that, as Andrew, I'm sure on your journey, you ran into a couple little glitches here and there, and how you handle them. And it's to help others, knowing that they're not alone out there trying to run their companies, that we all run into these same problems. And if we can shed any light and help someone miss some pitfalls, that's what we're kind of here for. It's all done as fun, and we just want to share our experiences with others and see if we can help others that are running the same, that are on the same journey, premature in their journey than ours. Don't you agree? How's that explanation, Jay?
I love it. I think the explanation hits a lot of what my journey has been, as far as some of my major pitfalls when I think have been of lack of awareness of what were not only my limits within the law, but really like how far I could go. Oftentimes I made decisions that were really just restricted by what I knew, and I didn't explore other options because I thought, oh, that can't possibly be legal, right? That can't possibly be an option, instead of going out there and looking for the right way to structure something to truly get what I want, which is like one of the main questions that I think, folks that I coach have, right? What are some of these legal lessons that every founder should know, in your opinion, Andrew?
Legal lessons on starting a business, and I would say the first one that comes to mind is be careful about going in with partners, and like having co-owners of your business right away. In the right setting, it can make sense, but I can't tell you how many times I've seen even a new business start falling apart because, the co-owners get into disagreement, so-and-so's put in more money than someone else, and it can just really ruin a business. And so I always say that if you are going to go in with a partner, set a framework in place for decision making and tie breaking if there's disagreements, and try to predict and prevent in your contract and address as many of these potential problems as we can that could arise between two owners. Because that's what I see ruin a lot of new businesses, is people always want to say things like, oh, well, we have skin in the game. Like I want to give stock to my employee so that he has skin in the game. It's like, well, now he might be able to vote on decisions, perhaps outvote you, depending on what the shares of that company look like. And maybe you would have rather just had a profit sharing agreement. Like, hey, if we meet this, mark in our sales, then you're going to get X amount of the profit as a bonus. It's like you're still putting that carrot in front of the cart and that motivator, but you haven't like given away the farm to this person just so that you can say you're co-owners, that can create a lot of problems in starting a business. Hold on a second here.
Off the pier into the water by themselves. Let's hold hands and jump off together. I think it's an insecurity by some entrepreneurs thinking that they want to get into this together as a form of security blanket. But in reality, they should have probably entered this contract or entered went into business by themselves. But it's lonely, you know what I mean? It's lonely and it's scary. And I think that's why a lot of people try to bring a partner.
Yeah, I think so too. I think there's some insecurity there. Sometimes people are just friends, or it's a good idea. Like I'm gonna run the kitchen and you're gonna do the bar, and we're gonna do great together. But little disagreements can arise and turn into big problems that wind up ruining the business because we didn't create a framework where at least one person can kind of make a final decision. And in a partnership agreement like that, if you're going into business, things you can put in there are like, we have to go to mediation before filing a lawsuit, so that kind of keeps hopefully your legal costs down, maybe solve the problem without going through the hassle and formalities of a court case. Maybe there's a mediator. Maybe it's even someone that both the business owners know that they both trust, that they're going to say, we're going to mediate with that person. Or a neutral random mediator. But things like that, death procedures, like what happens if one of us passes away, a clear framework so that, the family of the deceased person can get whatever value the person wanted them to get out of it. Companies, they say, well, the owners will just absorb each other's rights as they pass away. Others are more like, no, you get my 50% interest. But with a contract like that, you can say, for example, that buyout takes place over 2 or 3 years, so that the company doesn't have to just come up with all this money on this and different things like that. Give a little bit more stability, both to the family and to the continuing business owner to keep that company running, different items like that to address. So I would say that's one main problem kind of up front with starting a business. I think, another problem I'll say just as an attorney, is often when people start a business, they'll call me and they'll want to purchase legal services that maybe the business isn't ready to incur yet. Like, hey, should I get a trademark for my logo I just designed on my computer? It's like, well, yeah, it is important to like protect your logo. The risk of someone stealing this brand new logo you made tomorrow are very low. So maybe we don't immediately spend $1,000 or $2,000 on registering that trademark with an attorney. Maybe we make some money for the next 6 months and then come back to some of these, extra things that are good for any business. I think like a partnership agreement is good to have up front, but sometimes people will want me to, like, let's say, draft them a contract template for their customers, and they haven't even sold anything yet, and they're already spending, hundreds or a couple $1,000s on me to draft them a contract. It's like, why don't we just like get some jobs done, get some money in, and like slowly build this? And that could go for any cost. I mean, that could go for, I see a lot of business owners want to put the big sign, on the front door, like, and that's like, I made it, because they got their sign above the door and they spent 10 grand making a really nice sign. But it's like, you gotta make sure your product or your services sell first. Maybe spend money on that. Maybe be putting that sign off until 6 months to a year or two into the business, and get something smaller to start. So managing your startup costs, I mean, it kind of sounds like a no-brainer, but you can kind of get carried away with it if you're not thinking about it outside the box. I'd say that's a problem too. People just spending too much money right up front on, I don't want to call them luxuries, but things that we could put off for a few months and let the business start growing first.
In my industry, I know that I've seen a lot of startups happen with guys, and I make sure, this is one thing I noticed, and I didn't make this mistake, but a lot of times when they start a business, they buy a new truck.
Mm-hmm.
Now they got this big payment.
Yeah.
And they don't have any work yet, or they don't have enough to cover the cost of the payment. And then it starts putting them in stress and in problems right off the bat. If I buy a $70,000 vehicle, or I buy a $10,000 one, it's used, it looks nice, it can still do the job. I didn't have to spend all that money up front and get some other things underneath my footing. before we go to new trucks.
Yeah.
But I think
Well, yeah. Go on.
I wanted to explore a little bit the partnership aspect of things, right? Because I think nowadays I've noticed more people are coming together to invest on something, especially because, what are you trying to invest? Oh, I want to buy 6 cars and start my own Turo rental little thing, right? So, but I
Yeah.
need capital, so I get a partner to do that. Or if I go into real estate to do something like that. So I think when you talked about a partnership agreement or having, especially I think Wes and I, a couple episodes ago, we talked about roles and responsibilities, right? Something that the decision-making roles are very well defined, right? Within either the expertise or what the person is willing to do for the business. So when it comes time, there is no like, no, but I want it to be heard on that topic. No, hold on. We set that up before. We can't not run this business because now you want to have an opinion about what kind of truck we're going to buy for a plumbing company if I was the responsible for that kind of thing. So is that sort of what you're talking about when establishing like clear structures at the beginning? You said something like that.
Yeah, I mean, just like if the business is going to buy something, especially if that thing is worth more than, let's say, $5,000 to $10,000, it's like, can either business owner just do that, or do we have to vote on it? And if we come into a disagreement where we're kind of gridlocked, is one of the owners, more 51% on the decision making, so that we can get through the issue and move forward. Partnership agreements can come in different forms. I mean, let's say you had a real estate portfolio and you're trying to get investors into that. Instead of making them like normal co-equal shareholders or LLC member owners with you, maybe they're, non-voting Class B stockholders. And they still have stock, they still have a real investment in the company, but they never have the right to really vote on any company decision other than just getting their, profits that they're entitled to.
I know. I feel like I'm in a classroom. You know why? Because we're testing also a different software. So I'm like, where's the button that unmutes myself? So I'm like, hold on, I have a question on that. But you mentioned a very specific thing, non-holder. What is it?
Oh, non-voting shareholder. Like not non-voting stock in a company where you've put $100,000 into this company to buy stock and you're entitled to profit someday, but you don't have any right to vote, on anything.
Understood. Okay.
Or maybe your rights to vote are limited. Like you can participate in the annual meeting, but other than that, you don't really have any formal voting rights in the company. And then maybe the Class A stock, those are like kind of the core stock shareholders who started the company that do vote on some of those cases. It's just an example. I mean, all this is every contract or every business startup and partnership agreement is different, but just giving examples of like, you can be an investor without having kind of a say over the company. And if you're a business owner, that's kind of how you want your investors. You don't want to be outnumbered and outvoted on things because you needed their money to start the company, but you don't necessarily want to give the company away to them. You're still going to run it, and it's still going to be your vision.
Right.
Another thing too is you're hindering that person who has started the company from really succeeding or failing because you have some other opinion interjecting on this guy's vision, and like you say, maybe outvoting him. Like, I want our rates to be this. Well, the guy that interjected money into the business and now, you unfortunately gave him rights to vote. He said, no, I want to make more money than that. So then you guys raise your prices because he had a vote and maybe that won. And all of a sudden you guys stop bringing business in because your prices are too high or something. Now the company starts to fail. But it was kind of because of that one guy that was an investor had a vote and he doesn't even know the industry.
Yeah, I mean, it can happen in all kind of ways. Like a real life example I have is there was a person who made really good. I'm not going to put a culture on it. Just really good food in town. He's a good chef, and he had an investor who was also his landlord that kind of gave him free passes on rent sometimes while the company was getting started to help him get going, and he was a formal investor in it too. Well, anyways, this guy's food was so good, but it kind of sold at higher prices. It was a little bit higher end, and so And it was actually really good food. I really liked it. I think I think the chef's problem was that he had trouble just getting up every day and going in and doing it. You know what I mean? Like he'd make a batch and then kind of sit back and wait. It's like, no, you got to be in there cranking out the next batch all the time. So some of it was on his part a little bit, but the investor, not noticing the problem I noticed, but just thinking the food was too expensive, started wanting him to sell cheaper items. You know what I mean? And kind of dumb down the menu a little bit so that more people could afford it. That's what the investor thought the problem was the prices. I thought it was just the work ethic. But anyways, so in doing that, though, it kind of changed the restaurant. It's like now we're not more of an upscale, cultural place, not stuff that every place in town sells like that. So of how like, when one party's putting in more money and investment, and especially if you don't have an agreement that says you control the business, because you guys just kind of went in together, I might say, hey, you guys are 50-50. You didn't put this in writing, and based on the emails and verbal, statements you're making, I'm going to determine you guys are, you're 50-50 gridlocked on decisions, and you might have to cave because that investor has all the money and you don't really have any right in your contract to override them. So
Andrew, would you say that this type of situation is your favorite part of practicing law? What makes you tick? Like, why do you wake up every day and say, hey, I want to do this aside from money, I guess?
Well, why did I want to be a lawyer? Or why do I currently still like it?
Yeah, or you still do it, right? What makes you tick now? Yeah.
I really like connecting with my clients and being an important part of whatever they have going on. I mean, whether it's making their estate plan so that they can pass their assets on to their kids or grandkids in a certain way, or helping them start a business, helping them avoid business problems. I mean, like like as a lawyer, depending on what you do, you really help people on like important or tough days of their life. And it feels I don't want to say it feels good. It feels like you're giving back. It's rewarding to see someone have their problem fixed or go home happy, or be a little bit more secure in whatever their legal issue is. So
that would be the results part. That's what you get as sort of a benefit. Like you love that piece, that like that section.
Yeah, I would say connecting with my clients. I mean, I meet so many different important players in town just because I do different types of legal work, and it winds up being fun. If you can have the patience and personality for it, it's a good career because you wind up meeting a lot of cool, important people and getting to help them, becoming, I've been invited to clients' kids, graduation parties and stuff. And like, I'm just some guy, it's like they're the client is, maybe a millionaire, has this really nice house, but like, he thinks I'm really important because I helped him with his contract. So he invited me to his kids' party, and you become friends with people, and it makes you feel a little more alive and like you're really living within your job and enjoying it.
Absolutely. No, I love that. And you had a question, Wes? I was going to say your dad, Wesley, your father, obviously, he says that a lot about the relationship piece and how important it is. And, sometimes it does become a friendship, right? Because like I met Wesley through work, right? He was like, oh,
Yeah.
like I came in there as a service provider, and sometimes a awfully rude one at that. You know what I mean? Like, hey man, let's do this together. So I think I love that. Now, you mentioned something else at the beginning that I've experienced dealing with attorneys in my, as being the business owner that is trying to seek expertise to get a deal forward. What is the most frustrating part, or what is something that clients should be prepared to share, or how sometimes I think that there's like a disconnect, like what I want from my attorney and what he thinks that I should get, right? And sometimes I jump from an attorney to another, trying to find the right balance. So do you experience that disconnect at the beginning, and how do you manage, or this is just me?
Well, I try to get a feel for the style that the client wants. Sometimes the client wants you to be very aggressive. Sometimes the client wants you to be more reasonable and kind of get the deal closed. And then the way I try to split up my work is I look at the project I'm being asked to do. Like, what is the client really asking me to do? Are they asking me to draft a contract, review a contract? Are they asking me to go to a closing with them and identify what the project is? Then start thinking in my mind, what do I think it's going to cost them? Because like, attorneys and clients are notorious for getting upset about billing because, like you said, there could be this disconnect in conversation where the client doesn't know exactly what the attorney's doing or how much time this is taking. And maybe the attorney isn't correctly identifying the style and the way the client wants us to be or what their budget looks like. And so that's just a classic like issue for our profession, is like getting in disputes with your client about billing because you didn't communicate enough with them. So I try to always be upfront with them about what things are going to cost and give accurate ballparks, and then analyze the style for the project that that client's looking for. You know, are they looking for the line by line, I go through every single thing and make sure, you know, every single page is perfect? Or do they kind of want me to review it, give it a good look over, and only bill them for, you know, 15 minutes to a half hour? You know, because that's not the client who wants their, maybe he's a real estate investor. He's read these contracts before. He doesn't need me to, you know, hold his hand through it like it's his first time. And so, yeah, I try to analyze my clients and identify their needs, the style they want, and matching their budget. There's times I'll tell clients, you know, you might want to do this piece on your own if you're looking to save money. You know, if you don't want to spend $700 or whatever, you know, whatever I wound up proposing the price to be to them on that project. It's like, I'll be honest with people, if I think they could do it on their own, you know.
How long does it usually take you to your satisfaction properly assess the client needs, like from that first interaction? How long do you like, oh, kind of know what this guy needs? Maybe not what he wants, but I know what would be, you know, the path to go.
I can say probably within about 5 to 10 minutes, I can put it within like the area of the law and like tentative solutions I think are right for the person's problem. And sometimes that might be it. I got it. Other times it's like within that, you know, there's some minor details and a little research I do to find the correct one within that subsection. But I would say pretty quickly, you know, like if someone calls me and says, hey, I'm going to have surgery next month and I want to put something in place for my family, I'm automatically thinking, okay, they probably need a will. They might need a transfer on death on their house. They might need a power of attorney so that if they are unconscious, their family can help them manage things. So pretty quickly, you know, or people call me and they say, I'm looking to start a business. Right away, I'm thinking, okay, did they file the LLC yet? How many partners are in this thing? How is it like a sole proprietorship, or are we looking at kind of a conglomerate? And so I think pretty quickly I've gotten good at identifying, you know, those areas and narrowing it down.
Okay. Hopefully I have one more. I swear I won't. I will let you do, but you know him for a long time.
Yeah, go ahead.
The question is I don't know how long you have been an attorney, as far as what, 10, 12 years or more than that? More than that, right?
I'm on year 8 right now.
Year 8, okay.
Out of law school. I mean, I was doing substantive legal work in law school, but yeah, 8 years as like a private practicing attorney.
2-part question. Number one, do you consider yourself a CEO of your own business, of your own practice? Do you see yourself as the?
Yeah, you know, I call myself the managing attorney of our firm. That's usually what the title is for the lawyer in a law firm who kind of is like the business manager. It's the managing attorney. Well, we're all attorneys, we're all kind of co-equal, but I'm the managing attorney. I guess I would. I mean, when I hear the word CEO, I kind of think like a mid to large size company where you have a board, you know, and there's a vice president and a treasurer and all these kind of more formal positions. And so I guess yes and no. Yes, in that, yes, I'm the leader of our business and I have to make a lot of decisions that a CEO would make. No, in that, like, my firm is small. You know, I'm more of I do a lot of important work, but it's we only have three technically attorneys in our local office right now, and that's not uncommon for a mid-sized town in the Midwest. You know.
Right.
But yeah, so I wouldn't, you know, being a small company like mine, I don't know if I'd go to someone and like say I'm a CEO, but in other settings it might work. And you know, if you have a 20, 30, 40, 50 employees, yeah, you're getting closer. It's like you probably have a bigger structure where people perceive you as CEO.
Interesting. What would you tell an attorney starting right now? The AI age. Don't forget the AI age, right?
I would say don't get discouraged. There's so many different areas of the law, and if whatever you thought you were going to do doesn't work out, you can pivot to something else. Like I always think, if my practice fell apart, it's like, well, I could start doing divorces. I could learn bankruptcy. You know, if you think outside the box, you really don't have to worry about business long term. I mean, yeah, it would suck to have to learn something new and restart, but be open, keep your options open, don't get discouraged. Kind of advice they told us in law school that I totally think is true is respect the staff and the court staff and the people that help. You know what I mean? Like some lawyers want to go in there and only respect the judge or only like respect the attorney. It's like, no, you should kiss the judge's clerk's butt. You should be really nice to your opposing counsel's paralegal, because those people turn the wheels, and if you're rude to them or you don't have a good relationship with them, it can make your life a lot harder. So I would say respect everybody. You know, don't have an ego about it, or think that just because you're an attorney that you don't have to respect the, you know, people who clean your office at night or whatever. It's like, it helps, and opportunities will arise in places you don't know they're going to come from if you have a generally good relationship with the rest of the world. You know,
I love that answer. Wes, I'll give you the floor.
Hey, so Andrew, could you give us a little journey of how this all came about and you got in your own business and all this other stuff? Could you?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was born and raised in Racine, Wisconsin. I went to college at Carthage College, which is in Kenosha, the next town down. I played football there. It's a Division III school. Got good grades, and I went to law school at Notre Dame in Indiana. Well, I went to Notre Dame because I kind of wanted a national school. I thought, well, I don't know if I'm going to want to be in New York or, you know, California or something. Envision in my head that I was going to come back to Wisconsin. So I thought Notre Dame would be a good stepping off point. And I wound up coming back to Wisconsin and started working for a man named John Knutson, my predecessor. I'm actually sitting in his office. This used to be his old office. And John trained me for 3 years on business, corporate, estate planning, everything I do. I mean, John for 3 years trained me, and I was kind of working under him. And he had been a lawyer for some larger corporations, you know, in the area, advising actually like the family, the owners, you know, of some of the larger corporations. So he had a lot of good of experience. And then when COVID happened in 2020, you know, it was shocking, but John passed away. And so you know, when you're, he was supposed to pass the business on to me. That's kind of why he hired me. It was like, I was going to kind of be his retirement plan, and he was going to phase out, you know, that's what you do a lot of times in a profession like ours. And so, but we never really got to do that because he passed away. And so I just kept coming to work and just kept answering the phone and figuring out how to do the work. If John hadn't trained me on something, I'd go look in our computer and find an old file for a similar project that he had worked on, and like tried to learn it myself based on, you know, the prior document that he had made. And it worked. And we found a way to negotiate a fair purchase of the building and the business from his estate and family. And here we are now. That was 5 years ago that John passed away. And I think the business is flourishing, you know, just as good in different ways as when John ran it. You know, we've really done a good job of continuing his legacy. And that's how I got to where I am, you know. So I didn't necessarily go the traditional firm route where like you work there for 10 years and then the partners vote you in if you're going to make partner or not. It's like I kind of became a partner because my boss passed away, and I was like, I'm not going to give up. I'm just going to keep coming in. And, you know, just because he passed away earlier than we wanted didn't mean that I was going to throw this dream away of running this business.
Well, first of all, congratulations. That's absolutely a wonderful journey. And I think that it also shows like the value of having an amazing mentor, right? And being able to be ready to listen sort of step by step. And hey, he didn't complete the class, I'm going to go after that. And, you know, so that is when I asked the question as far as do you think that people perceive you as a CEO? I believe that they do, even though you might like, oh, maybe in some settings, yes, maybe in some settings, no. But that vision of saying, no, this is what I need. I'm not going to give up on my goal. I'm going to figure out a way to buy a building. Had you bought a building before in your life?
No, it was the first real estate I ever owned. So I was 27 or 28 years old applying for that loan. And luckily the guy who was approving my loan used to rent an office from John, my boss who had passed away. And so he had kind of been around me for like a year when he was renting that office, and he really liked me. So he kind of gave me a good a good recommendation to the team. And I think what you said about, do I see myself as a CEO? Some of that is just like my profession, and like we're lawyers, you know what I mean? It's like we look at ourselves as like, hey, we're a specialist kind of outsider coming into this situation to fix it. So I think maybe it's just that I'm not day to day in the same business culture that, true CEOs and stuff are. I'm kind of like a specialist, and so to think of myself as a CEO, yeah, I think you're right, but I'm always bound by that. You're the attorney, you know what I mean? Like you're the advisor. But I think you're right. I think the spirit of being a CEO, I definitely believe I have.
When John passed away, was there a fear that you had, like, oh shoot, what am I gonna do?
Yeah.
Am I gonna lose my job?
Yeah. I mean, there was that fear. There still is that fear every day. It's a lot duller now because we got things under control, but there's always that fear of like, hey, this whole place could fall apart if I screwed up in a big way, if I start screwing up in a lot of little ways and getting lackadaisical. It's like the ship could go down at any moment. I mean, people are paying for my services. If I just didn't show up to work, it's like, okay, we're not selling cheeseburgers anymore. I am the cheeseburger. So,
Sorry, Andrew. We need to do a callback to an episode where I was talking to as exactly that was my fear. Because at the end of the day, whatever I'm doing, even though it's not a lot of people that work with me, right? Less than 10, but I'm the weakest link, right? Even if nothing happens, it's going to be a disruption of a month and a half, right? How am I planning for that, right? How empathetic I'm being with my surroundings of need to talk to an attorney. How am I going to do that? If something happened, right? Wesley gave me a good idea. So, but interesting enough, the fear that I had, it's common in people that are trying to do this. And sometimes it makes us not make a decision fast enough because we're afraid of that. Thus, when is the right time to bring an attorney? Does it need to be a big question, a small question, right? I'm always thinking about that. Usually I bring an attorney when I say, this is really a barrier and I need the answer to this question. Can I move forward legally? Yes or no? Sometimes it takes me a long time to be confident that attorney understood what my yes or no was. So sometimes that takes time. So that was that translation thing. So hopefully it brought full circle, but of course that's a very personal thing for me, right? That's the struggle that I have when I'm trying to navigate that world. But thank you so much for sharing all the stuff. I go into monologues sometimes, Andrew.
Yeah, that's what he told me offline.
But
no, I'm just razzing. So there was a fear, and I think that every entrepreneur has a little shaky fear, and the fear is. I remember when the kids were younger. One of my kids asked me, "Hey, are you afraid of monsters?" And I said, "No." And they said, "What are you afraid of, Dad?" "Dad, you're not afraid of anything." I said, "I'm afraid of one thing." And then he said, "What?" And she said, "What's that?" I said, "Fear or failure." I said, "I'm afraid of failure." And I think all of us entrepreneurs are. And, like you say, this is what puts food on the table. So it's near and dear to our hearts. So we get a little nervous if it could possibly be disrupted. And I didn't know you had that fear about it when John passed, that you thought, where do I stand? Do I lose my job? I didn't know that you had that fear.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't like a fear where I was like losing a ton of sleep over it or can't function. It was just like, I was just like, holy shit, like I gotta get this together here, or I gotta look for a new job, and it was I don't want to say it's humbling. It's just kind of a wake-up call, like, hey, let's do it. It's time to get going, time to roll. Yeah, it was definitely on my mind. And I knew, people would think like young guy taking over this practice from an older, more experienced attorney, like, is he going to screw it up? And I just kept a positive perspective and kept moving forward. Now I'll also say too, overcoming failure, and yeah, you're afraid of failure, but then when it does happen, from time to time, it's like finding ways to learn from it and not like completely break down. I remember there's times where a judge scolded me in court. Like I wasn't prepared for some issue or forgot a document or something, or I don't know. I spoke a little too aggressively to a client and they fired me. That happens like once every 2 to 3 years. It's very rare. Maybe my style was just a little different than they were looking for. I mean, it's like I could sit there and think about it and beat myself up about it and question everything. But then it's like, well, what about the 99% of people that are really happy with you, or the 99% of the time that you went to court and things were just fine and nobody scolded you because you had all your stuff ready. It's like, learn from mistakes, but get up and keep going and move on, and that can be hard for me to do, dwelling on a past mistake or, just going back into that situation in time. It's like, let it go, move on to the next one, be better next time.
When you started opening the business, John passed, now you're like, oh shit, I got to take over.
Mm-hmm.
How were you perceived by others in your industry at that time? Did they take you serious? Did they try to support you? How did that all, did you get a pulse on it?
Well, I had been practicing for about 3 to 4 years by that time. So people already kind of respected me, at like a basic level. But I think some people were skeptical, especially other attorneys, like, oh, they're going to buy the building. Can we, I wonder if they can handle that. And nobody like really reached out and insulted us or anything, but I have noticed that the longer I've been in this role, the more it's like you have a little bit more respect from other people. Like problems in a case or in a business negotiation we're working on that I used to have to over explain and really argue for in the past. Now some attorneys will just like kind of like, oh, it's Andrew. Okay, like no bullshit. Let's just kind of cut to the chase here instead of like, going in circles and fighting about this stuff. They're like, they understand my perspective and respect it a little bit more. So I guess there's less like ticky-tacky back and forth arguing now, more like, when your adversary, it's like, let's just be direct. Like, how are we going to settle this? You know what I mean?
Yeah, because you already danced that many times. You already know each other's limits, so you just kind of get to the end.
Yeah, you've danced before. So,
yeah.
All the other little things you might throw at a random new attorney you're meeting, it's like, well, you're not going to do it to that guy you've danced with 20 times. So yeah, there's some building of respect like that.
How about did judges ever take you out to the side and say, yeah, that was a good friend of mine, sorry to hear about it?
Yeah, a couple of them have. Interestingly enough, though, after I took over for John, because a lot of our business is not going to court, it's like making a contract or, helping someone start a business. I stopped meeting judges a lot because I wasn't in court as often. But yeah, there are a few that I've seen them out and they've, always been very nice to me and come and said hi. I guess I can say I've gotten referrals from the courthouse where like a judge's friend needs help. It's like he'll send it to me. It's like, oh, well, he must like respect me on some level to send his friend to me,
Or he may just say, Andrew is the only patient human being that'll be able to deal with my cousin or something.
Yeah, I've had them do that too. Like I think in our town, some people perceive me as willing to help someone who's kind of down and out. I mean, if it's within my practice area, I'm not gonna like do something crazy, but something that I do routine, like making a will for someone. I think some people know that I'll help people if they really need it. And so sometimes when people go to court and they're trying to do their own eviction or trying to, file their own probate for their parents, and they're really nice people, but they're just kind of screwing it up and they need help because the court can't give them legal advice. They'll say, hey, go see Andrew, because they know I'll at least meet them and shake their hand and look at what they have. And
before, Andrew, I go into a little bit more business related questions as far as your practice, how you sort of plan to grow, whether you outreach. I have a more curious question. Hopefully you can see on your screen. What is your favorite TV or legal TV show and why?
I would say just off the top of my head, I like Breaking Bad and I like Saul Goodman in it. I know it's not like a true legal TV show, but he's like an attorney throughout that series. That
the Saul Goodman one. Oh, absolutely.
Well, I liked Breaking Bad and his character in there too. But I just think that was a cool show and I liked his character as a lawyer. Other legal shows, I'm trying to think. Sometimes I don't always watch legal shows. I say I feel like I'm at work. When your girlfriend or wife wants to watch a show with you and it's all like suits and stuff. I'm like, I feel like I'm at another meeting or something watching this. Right. I liked Law and Order a lot when I was younger. The New York City ones with those kind of messy cases and putting the bad guy away. I always like those dramas.
What inspired you to become a lawyer in the first place? I mean, I always thought you wanted to be a doctor or something.
Well, I did want to be a doctor, and then you told me you didn't think I had the nice enough personality to be a doctor. You said, I think, well, this was back in 2008 when the healthcare industry was changing a lot. And a lot of doctors were nervous, like, oh, is our career going to just be dominated by the government now? So that kind of made me reconsider being a doctor. I did really like science and biology and stuff. I think I've always been good at writing and speaking. Like those are just good skills I have. I'm a good writer. If I'm prepared, I can speak okay. And then Dad, I think at one point you did say like, when you're a doctor, you take that Hippocratic oath, like you'll help any person that needs it or whatever they say. And I think you said something like, you have a kind heart, but I don't know if you have that kind of bleeding heart to be a doctor. You'd be better as a lawyer.
Yeah. Okay.
So
I remember
things, huh?
I remember during that part when you were in college, I had no idea you were going to go to law school and become a lawyer, and I had no idea you were going to go to Notre Dame. All of a sudden, you just came to me one day and said, "This is what's going on." He's going to school to be a lawyer. I didn't know. You really did play your cards.
I think we had like about it and touched on it. I mean, like I remember when we were going to Megan's wedding out in Nebraska, I think, or whatever it was. Like, I was like trying to talk to her relatives about how did they get into Harvard and stuff. And yeah, I mean, maybe I wasn't talking about it all the time, but it was being planned and worked out.
Andrew, I believe that your Mr. Rosenberg there, the senior one, wasn't just wasn't paying attention. Okay, you know what I mean? Like, come on now. Well, all right. So here we have like 7 minutes. I have a couple like lightning round questions, or instead of doing a lightning round, is there anything you would like to share about like Racine or your practice, things that you are seeing in an environment that people need to be, watching out for, things that I have no clue what's going on in Racine and whether you see changes, external changes happening through the type of cases you're getting. So I don't know. What are you seeing?
I haven't seen a ton of new changes going on. I would say one kind of more common document that people make a lot more now than they used to 30, 40 years ago is prenuptial agreements, and if you're getting married. I have a partner in the Milwaukee area who we kind of team up on referrals and stuff. And he does a lot of family law. So he sends me a lot of prenup cases where, we're going to draft an agreement so this couple can get married and isolate their assets or whatever. And that's a growing area. And it's a lot of it's due to just population and demographic shifts. Like, men and women have more equal chances at getting good jobs now and owning, respectable pieces of property, where 100 years ago, a lot of times it was like men owned all the property and women didn't have anything. So if they got divorced, the women were really up against a tough situation. Nowadays, like sometimes women have better jobs than men, and therefore couples are more comfortable entering prenuptial agreements now, entering it kind of on level playing field that, well, I get to keep my business or my IRA that I started, and we make sure you always get your inheritance you got from your grandpa, and putting that stuff in place. Sometimes it can create for a better relationship because we're not entering this marriage constantly worrying and bickering and fighting about, what's going to happen if we get divorced. We already know. So we're going to focus on each other rather than worrying about the ramifications of divorce because we already settled it before we got married. That's, I think, common thing in millennials that I see.
I like it. Interesting. How much longer are you going to work? Are you like Mr. Rosenberg that you are planning like already? How do you say, Wes, that you already executing your exit plan?
I probably plan to work till someday I want to start traveling more. I want to start being able to go to other countries, like go to Japan for 2 weeks or go see Europe again, and just be able to maybe have a team of people I'm managing, and then I'm here in my office, 60 or 70% of the year. I don't really have a hard deadline on it. I got to see where life takes me. I mean, being a lawyer isn't physically demanding, so it's not hard, and it's not uncommon for lawyers to work into their 70s, even if you're just kind of slowing down, but you're still making wills for people or whatever. So I would say I'm going to always keep my options open. But yeah, once I get into my 50s, I guess I'd like to have 20-25% of the year that I'm traveling or, going, maybe I'm working, but I'm in Florida working remotely, managing a team here, stuff like that.
So sort of that's kind of how you envision you growing your company, sort of through allowing you to travel more and be more balanced, sort of thing, where you are.
Well, as far as growing the company, I mean, initially I thought, okay, we'll just hire more attorneys. We'll like grow it organically from the ground up. Well, due to just like, Wisconsin's geography and population and where people are located, and the fact that it's hard to keep people, they often want to just leave you. Now to grow, I'm looking more at teaming up with other lawyers who already have their book of business going, and maybe they do something different than I do. So we're not true competitors, but we'd be a good team, to provide both of our services to clients and
synergies.
Yeah, and so it's cheaper because you don't have to from the ground up pay for everything. Like if I have my office here and he's got that office there, now we got two offices. We can just share them. I don't have to go open my own new office up in Appleton or wherever I'm trying to break into. And so, working with other attorneys who are kind of at where I'm at, rather than just trying to hire a new law grad and build it from the ground up. So that's kind of how I'm trying to grow, like, across the state and maybe even break out of Wisconsin someday, team up with some other good lawyers I know. And, we all provide different services, and therefore we can be kind of a full service law firm someday.
The word of the day, teaming up with people, Wesley. Look at what we're doing, right? And really being creative about how you grow, right? Because he wants to grow, but he's like, there's no reason to try harder in my neck of the woods, and there's no reason to put that much time, assets into something new if I can collaborate and share the wealth. And hopefully you can also grow on the back office part as well, as things that, cost centers that you have that the other person has, that you guys start collaborating, right? Web design, whatever the hell, right? No, go ahead, please.
I was going to say, some of those problems I brought up at the beginning of our podcast, where I said, oh yeah, don't go into business with a partner. Like, make sure you have a framework. I'm starting to run into some of those issues as I grow and collaborate with other attorneys. It's like, okay, well, who does own this? What is my share? What is my say? And so even as like going into round 2 of growing my business and the next phase of it, it's like, yeah, I got to think about who's in control. What are my rights? What do I compromise on and, share with the other people that's fair? And so those issues always pop up, and it's kind of interesting. I'm going through like another round of that. So
is there anything that what are some of the, I don't want to say documents, the words document. What kind of documents should a business owner have in his business? Like, I know for me, you've prepared a non-solicitation agreement.
Mm-hmm.
I know in my business, you've possibly helped define some things in a company handbook. What are some of the
hopefully?
Oh, we bill everybody fairly. I would say, like, okay, so internally, you're going to want your employee contracts. If you have kind of key managers, you may want non-solicitation agreements so they can't raid your employees and take your business secrets with them. Maybe a non-compete. They're still legal in Wisconsin, even though the world doesn't really like them. And just, handbook, employee rules. Externally, your customer contracts, your contracts with important vendors that need to be fair. Every company should have like its core corporate documents, like the founding documents of the company, the articles of organization or incorporation. And
where should those be saved? This is a question. I remember I bought up, one of the corporations that I founded. I bought the whole package and all pretty and stuff, and sometimes it makes. So is this just it? Like, it goes into a safe and just stays there until you change? Like, what's the after you have it?
Pretty much. You like in the old days, and even still, you have a minute book. Like your corporate minute book. It's like a red book or whatever colored book, and it has your articles, your maybe any shareholder agreements, the stocks, all that stuff from when the company started, and then your annual meeting minutes where you say you had a meeting and elected your president and stuff. So every corporation has or should have that book. And it kind of just sits in a corporate library. And the reason you do that is so that if you get sued, you can show that like you really have a corporation, you really operated it. You didn't just file the paperwork with the state and never touch it again. It's like, no, you have real people who work here who actually have a meeting once a year and elect a president for the company. And that you have real stocks that have been issued, and sometimes they get, sold to someone else. And so, because if you get sued and you don't have that stuff, there's a risk that they could pierce the corporate veil, it's called, and sue the owners as a human being and say, okay, well, now I want to take your house and your car because you are operating a fake company. So yeah, at the end of the day, this corporate minute book does just kind of sit on a shelf waiting for the next update next year. But if you didn't have it, that's where you risk.
So are there companies that just have all those forms online, your corporate book online in a vault, whatever you can, have in a hard drive, or it has to be this physical copy that one of the partners must have?
I think digital is better than nothing. I usually like both. Like have it all digitally, and then have that book somewhere too. Just like if we make a will, it's like, well, I want that original will kept safe, but we can scan it in and have a PDF of it signed too. So I really like both. I think a lot of companies do store their records electronically now. But there's something about like to bring paper to pen to a document, it has to be physically real and printed out. And so that thing should always be stored somewhere. Now, if it gets lost, a minute book can be recreated. We could recreate one if we lost it in a fire or something. And so I think digital is good to have as a backup and as maybe like a functional, documents you're sending around if you ever have to send them to someone. But I really like both.
Two more questions because we're almost out of time, but both are. Which one I asked first? Okay, first one. You got all the money in the world, everything you want to happen. You're comfortable. You're working on what you want. No limitations of resources for you, Andrew. Let's say it's 5 years in the future, so you're already even wiser now, right? And you have all those things. So picture the scenario. Now, what one problem would you fix?
In the future?
Yeah. At that time, you have all the resources that you need all the time, tranquility, health, mental health. You're happy. If you like cigars, imagine you have a cigar in your hand.
Mm-hmm. My own problem or like a world problem?
It could be a world problem, whatever issue that, they say, I'm going to devote my time and my resources to fix it. Whether you fix it yourself or somebody else, I don't care. But you're going to, give for that or do on that.
I would probably say more resources for, kind of some of those underserved groups like children or animals or, young men and women who need some guidance. I would say trying to solve that problem however you can. If I had all the resources, I think you definitely could solve it. But I'd say sometimes I have a heart in me of like, I feel bad for the little guys sometimes, like the children who go through the foster system or, dogs who get bought and then no one plays with them and they get kind of tossed to the side. Like, I just feel bad for the, those ones that are down and out. Especially, probably younger, young adults. So,
all right. Your recommendation for us, legal recommendation for a podcast that is being stood up by an old guy and an almost old guy like myself who are doing for the objective that Wes talked about, right? And we have a couple boundaries as far as we're not trying to spend 50 hours doing it. It's supposed to be fun. It's supposed to do exactly what you mentioned that you like your career to do, where you having and building relationships and finding synergies, right? So that's what we're trying to do. So what would be your recommendation for us as far as how to structure? Because Wesley and I, we have a gentleman's deal, right? We know we said blah, 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 but we haven't done anything officially. So what are your thoughts?
Like on content you should do or just like legal?
The legal one. We're getting free legal advice.
At some point you should probably put together like an ownership agreement over the podcast or an operational agreement on just who makes which decisions, what happens if someone gets sick or passes away, especially if the podcast takes off and it's worth money now because it gets, views or whatever on different mediums. So yeah, planning for operationally, how do we get along and solve problems and who makes what decisions? Then unforeseen circumstances of like disability or death, who continues on with those podcast rights. I mean, I think that's always wise. I guess from like just like my thoughts on the podcast, like I think finding good, I don't want to call them juicy, but like juicy topics, you know what I mean? That could draw some attention and are still well within the business, like office relationships. You know what I mean? Like just some of those juicy topics and talk through them. I think that could draw some good views. Like, how do you handle your employees are starting to date, or, are office relationships appropriate? Like that might make people watch. And there's other, good topics too. But I always thought that'd be kind of fun and might make people want to tune in.
I love it. Do you have a juicy one that you want to share? We'll talk about it.
Trying to think. I mean, you just got to think about all, like, any kind of awkward part of life. Like, my parent passed away and my step parent received all of the money. And like, how does that relationship continue on? Just kind of like different awkward things you could run into in life. Or, I don't know, like hiring your children. How does it go about bringing a child into working into a business? What kind of dynamics and problems could there be, and pitfalls? I mean, we know a guy up north who let his son-in-law start running his business with them, and like now the son-in-law like has kicked him out, treats him like crap. Like, get out of here, old man. You're going to retire soon. Like, get the hell out of here. And it's like, yeah, this guy like lost his company because he hired his son-in-law. And then grandma doesn't want to fire son-in-law because the family needs the money for a grandbaby. It's like, it's just kind of a screwed up situation. But there's like some juicy, kind of topics out there that would be interesting to think through. I'd have to think of some more and put some time into brainstorming it. But there's good ones out there.
I love it. I can see you coming as a legal expert to say, are you right or are you wrong? Right? Like,
Yeah.
Because there are some things that like we do that we're doing out of, intuition that is the right thing to do, the right thing to say to our employees, the right way to fire, the right way to hire. Right. So those things are also, I think I love it. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. How do you fire an older employee? Like, yeah, like stuff like you don't think about it all the time, but it is when on that day when you got to fire an older employee of yours, it is really important to you, and you'd be curious as to what other people have to say about it.
Right. See that, Wes?
Well, that was an issue that I was running into, is that I was having an issue with one of my managers, and they were older, and I was like, who's going to hire this guy? Because I don't necessarily think he's got the skill set to be, running another company. So would he have to go back into the field? Does he have the physical ability to do the job until he's 65? I'm worried about that. How do I get rid of him or make sure he's still taken care of, though he's not taking care of me and I want him out of my company?
Yeah. And how do you structure it in a way where you don't get accused of discrimination, different things like that. Yeah.
Wes, 10, a little bit past our time. Andrew, thank you so very much. Any plugs you want to do for the KHR attorneys in Racine, Wisconsin? Hashtags.
Yeah, hashtag KHR Law Firm. You're always welcome to give us a call. We're at 262-633-2000. We're a general practice firm, and we partner with Grieve Law, which is a great criminal defense and family law firm in Wisconsin. So yeah, happy to always, give you 5 to 10 minutes of my time and let you know what I think of your legal issue.
And as Andrew said, within 3 minutes, he already knows the solution. So it's going to be well worth it.
Or narrowing in on it. Yeah. Sometimes it's narrowed in of like, hey, I'm going to send you to a specialist. Like, you got to call that lawyer who does your, roof fell apart case. So,
right. Thank you so much, Andrew, Wesley, our producer Keegan on the background. You guys have a fantastic weekend. Signing off.
All right. Thank you.
Take care. Thanks. Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.